Sometimes I wonder if we've become a culture that is so concerned about security that we've become very risk averse. We're afraid to take risks because we might fail. By choosing to not take a risk and not fail, we're losing our potential for developing resiliency. I think of restlessness as like a light on the dashboard of your car. Something isn't working. I think of it as the impetus that will nudge you into something that is more meaningful, more fulfilling. I have a dream. Someday a kid is going to be standing on the top podium step at the Tour de France, and he's going to say, when I was invisible, somebody saw me and gave me my first bike.
Over the past number of years, you've given away more than 200,000 bikes for free. What's the idea behind it, and how did you come up with it originally?
I've always been
Welcome to The Edge of Possible, the podcast dedicated to helping you achieve extraordinary things. I'm your host, Cameron Atlas, and together, let's unlock your edge. Sometimes we can treat feelings of restlessness, uncertainty, or a sudden lack of fulfillment as a bad thing, a sign that we've somehow lost our way. But what if that feeling isn't a dead end? What if it's actually a signal pointing you directly towards your next phase of growth? Well, that's how today's guest, Terry Esau, has navigated his incredible journey. Terry spent years as a highly successful composer, writing and producing over 1,000 commercials for massive brands like Target, Pepsi, and McDonald's. And then following a creative nudge, he became an author of multiple books and founded the nonprofit Free Bikes for Kids. Over the past dozen years or so, he and his team have given away more than 200,000 bicycles to kids in need. In today's episode, you're not only going to hear Terry's inspiring story of reinventing himself at multiple stages of life, but we're also going to walk through how you can harness your own restlessness and turn it into bold action. We dive deep into the real power of curiosity, the profound lesson that his daughter taught him about giving with dignity, and why adopting his 3-strike rule might just be the secret for overcoming your own fear of failure. Please enjoy my conversation with Terry Esau. Terry, over the past number of years, you've given away more than 200,000 bikes for free. What's the idea behind it, and how did you come up with it originally?
Well, I've always been a bikeaholic, by the way, because when I was a kid, I had a paper route because I got paid to ride my bike to deliver papers. And my brother and I would put on bike shows. We'd build ramps and collect neighborhood kids and have them lie down on the street, and we'd see how many we could jump over. And we usually made it. You know, one time my brother didn't make it, and that was the end of our bike shows. But then when I was 16, my buddy and I rode our bicycles to the West Coast and back from Minnesota, about a 4,000-mile bike ride. So it's like, and then when I got older, I actually started racing bikes. So, and I have a metal plate in my shoulder with 9 screws and some other metal in my body from bike racing crashes. But I've always loved a bicycle. It's like, still to this day, when I get on a bike, I feel like I'm 5 years old again. I'm happy. It's like whatever stress I have in my life, 100 yards into my bike ride, and all the stress goes away. So I just thought, and then I started looking around, and I noticed, all of my friends, we still had our little kids' bicycles in our garages, and our kids had outgrown them. So, I went on one of the local TV stations and said, hey, me and my cycling buddies, we're going to collect bikes this Christmas. We're going to repair them, fix them up, and we're going to give them to kids who don't have a bike, can't afford a bike. And that first year, we gave away about 200 or so bikes. And we all said, that's fun. Let's do it again next year. And we gave away 700 and some. And the next year, we gave away 1,500. And that's when I said, well, this is starting to feel less like a hobby and more like a part-time job. So I said, how about if I go find a corporate sponsor? Let's form a nonprofit, put a board together. We did. And that year we gave away 5,000 bikes. So, that was, 12 or so years ago. And then we started just continued growing that here in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. But then I kind of realized, we had a unique model because we basically collect bikes one day a year. And then we get somebody to donate a huge warehouse to us for about 2 or 3 months. We bring in thousands of volunteers to clean and refurbish the bikes. And then we partner with various organizations and give all the bikes away. And it's all done in about 2.5 months. So I go, we have a unique model. We've created a whole system. What if I take this to other cities? And the board said, if you come full time, we'll do that. And we did. So now we're in 15, 18 cities around the country. And like you said, we've given away over 200,000 bikes. We're aiming to my goal is to give away 1 million bikes in my lifetime. I'm 71, so I better get on it. We're making progress. And a lot of people are involved, tens of thousands of volunteers have helped us in our cities around the country. So not only are we making kids happy by giving them a bike, we're also giving a lot of volunteers an opportunity to do something good and feel like they're part of what we're doing. So yeah, that's free bikes for kids, man.
How do you decide who gets a bike?
Interesting story. So when I started, first of all, I had no idea what I was doing. So we just put an ad in a paper and said, hey, if you've had a tough year financially, can't afford a Christmas present for your kid, and they don't have a bike, come on down, we'll give them a bike. A lady showed up in a full-length mink coat, big diamond ring. She showed up in her Mercedes, and she goes, well, this is so great. We always have to transport our kids' bikes up to the cabin in the summer. And she goes, now we won't have to. We'll just have bikes in both places. And I gave her a minute. And, finally the light went on in her eyes and she goes, oh, that's not what this is about, is it? I go, no. So after that, what we decided to do was we would invite schools, community-based organizations like, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, YMCA, faith-based organizations that work with low-income populations. And we invite them to apply to us to become a benefiting partner. We vet them. Are they doing good work? Do they try to keep the dignity of people intact? And each year, like here in Minneapolis, we'll select 75 to 100 of those schools and organizations. And then they choose the kids who receive the bikes. So we never actually choose the kids to receive the bikes anymore. We invite those partners to collaborate with us, and then they choose the kids who get the bikes.
Gotcha. It's such a beautiful thing is riding a bike. I know as a kid, there's a couple of examples that I have growing up on a farm in outback Australia. We were along the dirt road, so we had our bikes. But then you go cruise up to the highway, and a couple of examples. There was one moment, and I'll say these are preface this with these are two moments of failure in my life. So there was this one where I don't know, it was maybe 6 or 7 or something like that. And back in Australia, you can collect bottles and cans. At least in the state that we were in South Australia, you can collect them, and you get 5 cents for every can or bottle that you hand into the station, and they, from a recycling standpoint. And I had this grand idea one day that, calculating, well, 5 cents, okay, well, like all we need to do is collect 20,000 cans. and then I'll have $1,000 and I'll be rich, right? And it seems so obvious math, and I tried to coax my older brother into it, and he wasn't having anything of it. And then I got my sister on board, and she agreed to it. We cruise up, tell mum and dad what we're about to do, and it was a stinking hot day back in Australia, and in outback Australia, stinking hot day, and I think they knew, but they let us go. And so I go hook my little red trailer up to the back of the bicycle, thinking that maybe that's going to hold everything. Like, just not having any concept. I think probably that trailer might have been able to hold maybe about $2 worth of cans. We took it up, rode up to the highway. It's about 2 miles up the road. get up to the highway. I think we maybe collected about 7 or 8 bottles and cans, and then it was too hot and came back down, and that was the end of that one. But it's a beautiful memory, like, you know, and we, you know, used to ride our bikes around. And there's other examples that I have I might share at some stage throughout. But yeah, they were a huge part of life growing up, and it's largely like a part of being a kid, right?
Yeah. Well, I always say a bicycle is the biggest thing between a teddy bear and a car. You know,
Yeah.
it's that first big possession that you own. I mean, yeah, Cameron, do you remember your first bike?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yes, I do. And yeah, it was this like blue bike with this cool seat. And then, yeah, I can't remember if I had training wheels. I don't think I had training wheels, but yes, I remember what bike it was.
Yeah. I ask this question to people all the time. I say, do you remember your first bike? Almost everybody remembers their first bike because it was a big deal for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like your first ticket to explore the world. It's first, you know, it's like going beyond your neighborhood. Your bike is the ride that you use to go and start exploring the world. And for you, it's like, you know, your first entrepreneurial experience of collecting cans. It's like, you know, a bike it takes, I will say a bike can take you places. And that, you know, and I think that has a double meaning. It's like, yeah, it's a vehicle, but it's also a vehicle that can expand your horizons and make you think a little broader. Like maybe I can collect cans and make a grand out of it. You know, I like your vision on that, man. It's like,
Yeah, it was one of the earlier days of entrepreneurship, right? But I mean, I will share one other one now. There's a couple that I can think of, but one in particular, I think it was in my teenage years, and it was about a half an hour drive to the town that I grew up in, and about 42K, so it's probably about 30 miles or so, something like that. And I had a mountain bike, and decided one day that I was going to ride into town, and had never made it before. I'd been riding a fair bit, but maybe, you know, only about half the way or something like that. And I was going to go meet a friend in town, and I said, "Yep, be there in I think like a couple of hours or something like that." Well, I get to I can see the 5 kilometer sign, which is about 3 miles or so. And there's this blue sign that comes up that says you're 5 kilometers away. And I get over this hill and I can see this sign, and I realize like I've run out of water and I've got no food either. And so my energy is just dropping dramatically. I'm like, come on, man, you got this. Come on, let's go. And I tried so hard, Terry, like to get into town. And it just got to a point where I ended up like veering off the side of the road and collapsing, and I was out. And it wasn't until there was a car that drove past, and I just was able to reach my hand up just enough. Just enough. And they come, and it's our neighbor from the farm, from up the road on the farm, going, what is this Cam? What is he doing? You know, they were going to take me to the hospital. I said, no, just take me in a town. My aunt was there at the time. She ended up making me this massive bowl of spaghetti. And I ate that and just went to sleep for about 2 hours. My friend didn't know where I was. He called asking what was going on. It was just a shit show. But it was a beautiful lesson from a preparation standpoint of, I wasn't prepared enough. I didn't have the right things at my disposal, and I ended up going in the other direction to another town and made that with flying colors at another time because I had that energy. And so there's been different lessons that have been learned. And I guess when we're exploring, like if a kid has a bike and the ability to be able to explore, the ability to be able to go places, the ability to be able to probably their first level of independence in a way, there's bound to be lessons that are learned that they go on to teach us something, right?
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you looked and you go, okay, what did you say it was? 30K? Or
about 42, about 30 miles it would have been, roundabout.
Okay. Yeah. It's like in your mind, I don't know how old you were, but you're going, I think I can do this. And the thing is, that's the first step, is going, I think I can do this. You know, it's like taking a risk, taking a shot at something. And it's like, right now, I don't know if this was something I read by Jonathan Haidt, but he has a thing where it talks about the only way that you learn resilience is by trying things and failing. And when you fail at something, you learn that, okay, I failed, but I didn't die. You know, you collapsed at the side of the road.
Near death. That's about one of my near death experiences, right?
You probably weren't actually that close to death.
No, not even close.
But you realize that, okay, I didn't quite make it. Like you said, you didn't fully prepare properly for it, but I bet the next time you did, so it's like a lot of the races that I did, some of those races were 100-mile races.
Wow.
And it's like, you better make sure you prepare, the right liquids, the right nourishment for that, because you're not going to always make it. And I didn't make it once. In cycling terms, we call it bonking, where it's like your body just says, that's it. You
Right.
screwed with me too long. I'm done. But yeah, it's like, you know it. Everybody who's ever ridden a bike knows that there's something magical about it.
Yeah.
It's like, I still think it's the ultimate invention. I know.
Well, with what you said about resilience as well, even as a kid, I mean, if you've got training wheels, for example, or if you don't have training wheels, you're bound to fall off and you get back on again, and then you get back, you fall off and you get back on again. And I remember there was one moment like that my first bike, and I was riding that in the out in the back area. And we had this pet sheep. We were super creative with our names for our pets on the farm. It was a sheep named Sheepy, and Sheepy had this. I don't know what it was that day. He was out and he was around us, and we had thousands of sheep on the farm, but we had him as a pet, and he just got this psycho tendency that came in, and he ended up like just knocking, like coming running up next to me and just knocking me straight off the bike, and I fell down and ran away but it's a fun piece, but the ability to be able to. The whole thing of being able to ride a bike is your ability to be able to continue getting back up when you fall down. And I think it's such a valuable lesson that we need to learn and continue to learn as we go through adulthood as well, because sometimes those knocks off the bike become bigger and become more impactful. Would probably be a piece, and there's more at stake is probably what I was getting at there, because your ability to be able to get back up is your ability to be able to build a great business. Your ability to be able to get back up is your ability to be able to be in a great marriage or a relationship. Your ability to be able to get back up is be able to be fit and healthy and well. And the more that we lose sight of that, the worse off I think we're going to be.
Yeah, and there are a lot of metaphorical sheepies in life that are waiting to knock you down, right? I mean, it happens in whatever business you're in or whatever you do in life. There's always a sheepy that's ready to give you one of those.
Putting it. Yeah. We've all had them. We've all had them, right? It's
I think you should write a little story about that. The metaphorical sheepy and how it will help you develop resilience.
I haven't actually until this conversation. I mean, one, I haven't thought about that for years until we started the conversation. I didn't even plan on bringing that up, and it just came back to my mind. And I haven't actually put the two together before around resilience, but realizing, it is. It's you've got to get back up, get back on the bike. And the more that we can teach that, the better. And so, what have been some of the results? I know you mentioned that you don't determine who gets the bike. Do you get feedback as to what that bike is meant for people?
All the time.
Do you?
Can I tell you one story?
Please.
So there was a kid who was in, I think it was Cub Scouts. I don't know if in Australia, if you have Boy Scouts and that sort of thing.
I know what they are. Yeah, I didn't wasn't in it, but I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So this kid, his troop or his group of kids in his troop were going to ride their bikes to this event and stay overnight, and then they were going to take a bus ride back. And his mom reached out to us and said, my son doesn't have a bike. And I said, we'll get him a bike. We'll make it happen really fast. So he got the bike. He rode to the event. They stayed overnight. The bus showed up to take them back, and he went to his troop leader, and he goes, why are we riding the bus back? Can I ride my bike back? So he ended up riding. He and the troop leader were the only two, and they rode their bikes back to where they had come from instead of taking the bus, and it was like, this kid, it was such a revelation to him that he could go somewhere on a bike and discover. And so it's like, we have tons of stories like that of kids, and a lot of the kids, teenagers that we give bikes to, they've never even learned how to ride a bike because they've never had one. And I lived on my bike when I was a kid. It was like, I grew up in a small town, and we would get on our bikes in the summer and we'd be gone for the day. And, our parents would say, be home in time for dinner at 6:00. But other than that, it was like, you just went off and we'd go discover things and maybe get into trouble occasionally, but it was
occasionally, I think we've all got those stories, right? All right, here we go. Let's trade a couple of get in trouble stories, and then I want to hear some of the lessons that you've learned along the way. What's a get in trouble story that happened when you were younger?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Some of the getting in trouble stories were, there was an island on this lake. I grew up in a little town called Mountain Lake in Minnesota, but there are no mountains in Minnesota. So it was not really a mountain, and the lake was not a great lake, but there was this island on it. And we would go there, me and my cousin, and we'd hang out and we'd camp overnight. And sometimes, we'd just stay for a few days and we'd bring some food along. But I remember one time there was a tornado came through, and it was like, the tent is going away, and it's like, it was chaos. But, back then, I don't know if my parents were delinquent. I can say that now because they're both gone, but they didn't even come check on us. It's like a tornado comes through town, and we showed up later in the day, and they go, oh, yeah, how'd it go last night? And we go, well, I think we almost lost it, but I don't know. We did a lot of things that we probably shouldn't have. I had a .22 rifle. It's like, we all grew up and we had guns and stuff, and we went hunting for fish with our rifles. So we would see them in the shallow water and we'd shoot them. So I know it's illegal, but in small town America, you could get away with stuff and nobody knew what you were doing.
Yeah, you'll have those moments. I remember there was this moment that we'd gone to the city. It was about a 9-hour drive to get to the city, and we were in Adelaide in the city, and we went to, it was my brother and I, and somehow we came across these other, I think there were two guys that were, I don't know if it was their house, but somehow they had these sandals on, and they were kind of like the old school kind of 90s sandals, the brown ones, and not the coolest looking things, and not our proudest moments. And I can't remember if it was both of us that said this or if it was my brother or it was me, but we go, nice sandals. And just, as they chased us, and they're bigger than us, so we get on our bikes and we're out of there, and we cruise around the block, and we knew we didn't have enough time to get back to our nana and grandpa's house, and so what we did is we ended up parking our bikes in this apartment complex just outside, and then hid in the bushes, but then called out, hey, Mum, and, pretended that we'd gone inside and then hid in the bushes until they went away. So that was an example of, just being a little shit at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
I think we all have those different moments. What have been some of the big lessons that you've learned along the way?
Well, let me tell you one other story first, can I?
Please do.
So we, we're in a small town, and we just thought, wouldn't it be funny if we faked like we were in an accident? So we would plan these things, like if somebody was at a stop sign or whatever in their car, and we'd go up behind or something and smack the car, and then one guy would go down in the street and we had ketchup and we'd spray ketchup on the kid and pretend like he had been injured, It was like, I guess it was early theater,
Yeah, that was classic. Make your own fun, right? There's a couple others I might be able to share before the end, but let's go into some lessons. And what have been some of the lessons that you've learned along the way here? And I want to understand how you got here as well at some stage. But let's go lessons from everything you've gone through with this not-for-profit first.
I didn't grow up in a wealthy family. We were very probably middle lower class, but at the time I didn't know it. I didn't realize we didn't have money to do a lot of things. It was just the way it was. But then I had a great career and made enough money to live a very nice life. And when I started Free Bikes for Kids, and started going, okay, now what we're doing is we're focusing, all of these bikes are going to kids in families where they don't have enough. They can't afford to buy a bike for their kid. I just started opening my eyes to the fact that there's poverty all around us. We just have to open our eyes to it. And we have to, you have to intentionally try to see poverty sometimes. A lot of times it hides, and people who are in those places, they tried to hide the fact that they don't have enough. So you almost have to look at it. And well, can I tell you another story? So
Please.
a lot of times we do these big bike giveaways. A lot of times we're giving away 1,500 bikes in a day at one of these events. And so we bring in a couple hundred volunteers to help us facilitate that giveaway. And everybody has a job and all this stuff. And a lot of times I'll give them a little pep talk beforehand and say, our job today is to make this day a beautiful day for these kids, and not just for their kids, for their parents. Because a lot of times the kids are smiling, but the parents are crying because they realize they're getting something. So one day, our youngest daughter went to school in Seattle, Washington, and one summer we went out to visit her. And she was working at a restaurant downtown. So we went and ate lunch at the restaurant, and then she was done working. She got a sandwich. She ate half of it and she boxed the other half up. And it was a really hot day in Seattle that day. And we were going to be driving around. I said, her name's Taylor. I said, Taylor, we can't take that sandwich in the car and have it sit in that heat all day. It's going to go bad. She goes, Dad, I know. She goes, I always do this. I eat a half a sandwich, and then when I'm on my way to the bus, I'll find a homeless person and I'll give it to him. And I thought, oh, what a wonderful daughter we raised. And so we're walking, our car is parked a few blocks away. And I'm, as a dad, I'm looking around like, where is this person that she can hand this sandwich to? Didn't see anyone until we got right across the street from where our car was. And there was a man standing there, and he literally had a sign that said, I'm hungry. And I go, oh, this is perfect. So Taylor walks up to him and she says, I have a half a sandwich I'd like to give you. And he just turns his back on her, and in my head, I'm going, what's your deal, man? You have a sign that says you're hungry. Somebody offered you what you need, and yet you won't take it. And there was a trash can right on the corner. And Taylor started walking toward it, and I thought, well, she's going to throw it away. But instead, she set her sandwich down on the edge of the trash can, and she folded it open, and then she folded the tin foil out so that the sandwich was visible. And then, without saying a word, she walked across the street to our car.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, my daughter just taught me a lesson. It's not enough to give somebody something. It's like, how do you keep their dignity intact while you do it? And so that's what I talk to my volunteers about before we give away bikes. Said, this is a chance for you to make them feel special, and do not do anything to let them think you are looking down on them. Our job here is to make sure that we keep the dignity of people intact. So that's a lesson that I have learned, taught to me by my daughter, that it's not just enough to give and to be generous. You actually have to try to keep the dignity of people intact while you do it.
It's a beautiful lesson, and a beautiful lesson to be taught, again, by your daughter, and also beautiful for you to be open to receiving that lesson as well, because they could have easily been dismissed. And
do you have kids, Cameron?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, if and
Nieces
when
and
you
nephews
do,
back in Australia, so they're a big part of my life.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have kids at some stage.
They will teach you lessons. Trust me.
Yeah.
The first lesson I learned when I had kids was that I was selfish. I did not know I was a selfish person until I had kids and realized, oh, they're completely dependent on me to stay alive.
Yeah.
And I can't screw this up, So sorry.
Yeah.
Got a little sidetracked there.
Yeah, it's great. What about, because I read that you have expanded out into the same kind of framework for, is it guitars and giving away guitars for free now as well?
Yeah. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine one day, and we were talking about what I had been able to do with free bikes for kids. And he's a music guy. My career was in the music business. So I had a company, and we wrote and produced music for TV commercials. So I've done commercials for McDonald's and Pepsi and Harleys and Hondas and Target and a bunch of other things. But it was like, I just thought, this guitar gave me a whole career. And a guitar is, in some ways, it's kind of like a bicycle. A guitar can take you places too. And it's a vehicle for a kid when they're struggling with emotions or self-worth or loneliness. They can sit down with a guitar and use that instrument to help tell the story. Yeah. So I was on a phone call with a friend, and he's like, I wonder if we could do the same thing with guitars that you did with bikes. And so we did. So we launched free guitars for kids, and now it's relatively new, but we've given away about 5,000 guitars, and it's growing really fast. I think it's going to explode even beyond what we're doing with free bikes. So it's exciting, and music has been kind of one of my first loves in life, and making music and creating. I have a dream, Cameron. I have two dreams. One dream is that someday a kid is going to be standing on the top podium step at the Tour de France, and he's going to say, when I was invisible, somebody saw me and gave me my first bike. And someday there's going to be a young woman standing on the stage accepting a Grammy Award, and she's going to say, when I was invisible, somebody saw me and gave me a guitar. That's that. I'm hoping that might be on my tombstone.
And they're two beautiful things to aim for. Yeah. Because you never know that moment as to what it might lead to, and sparking something in somebody. And I know it sounds like for both of us, music has been such a massive part of my life as well. Like piano's been more than 30 years. Guitar's more recent for me. But what, the last 5, 6, 7 years, but it was 2,000 hours over the first 500 days of learning that. I just like immersing myself in that to be able to deliver the keynotes that I have with live music on stage, like to be able to have the guitar only, not the piano as well. And it's been a beautiful experience of freedom in a way, because the piano I've always been tied to a specific geographical location, whereas the guitar, you got an acoustic, you can take that wherever you want to go, And you know, what's crazy is that the 2,000th hour that I did on the guitar was I happened to be back in Australia at the time. I happened to be on the farm back in at the house that I grew up in as a kid. And I ended up taking the guitar onto the rooftop of the house, climbed up on the chimney top and played my 2,000th hour as there was a storm going off in the distance. And it was this beautiful moment that wasn't for anybody else other than myself, a moment of being there in a place that the piano could go the least and just, you know, being an example of, wow, you did that. You actually followed through with that. But there's so much ability to be able to express, whether it's through actually writing songs yourself and being able to express yourself in that way, or simply just the piece of creating, or doing it together with people and having the ability to be able to collaborate. There's so many beautiful lessons that, again, can come from the power of music. And so I love that you're venturing into that space as well. And music really is that. We've heard it many, many times, but I massively believe that it is the case. That is the universal language. And I've seen it and witnessed it in many different cases.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's really cool you're doing that.
There's scientific studies now that show learning a musical instrument rewires your brain. And people who've learned a musical instrument, they do better in math and science.
Right.
So it's, you know, and then there's so much going on right now with these things that's creating a sense of loneliness in a lot of the younger generation. And I think guitar is a piece of a solution to loneliness. Because it's, we're hoping that some of these kids we give guitars to, that they'll create a band together, or they'll collaborate and write songs together. And who knows? Maybe we'll discover the next Prince or Jimi Hendrix or Clapton or.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know a lot of the Australian music superstars.
You're good. It's in those moments, especially younger kids. I know for me personally, there was a moment. So when I was 13, I'd been playing piano for about 5 years, and I went and took my sheet music back, song that I was learning at the time. And as I slid the sheet music back into my bag, once I got back to the classroom with the other kids, another kid caught a glimpse at the music that I was learning, and we had it was such a small moment. He probably wouldn't even remember it. That's the crazy thing about these moments that we have as kids, but I sure do. And it was a moment that made me feel, I felt in that moment that it wasn't okay to learn or be learning the kinds of songs and play the kinds of songs that I was learning at the time. And I couldn't shake that feeling of rejection. I wanted to have this sense of fitting in, this sense of belonging, and at the same time I was torn because I really loved playing at the same time. And on the bus ride home, I couldn't shake that rejection. I ended up telling Mum that I don't want to play anymore, and I stopped playing for 2 years, and they were two of the most challenging years of my life. I got to a point of not wanting to be alive anymore. And in the process of trying to fit into what somebody else's definition of cool was, I completely lost myself. And it wasn't until I walked past the piano one day, and I'd walked past this piano every day over and over again because my bedroom was the next room over. And there was just something about it that day. I remember walking and looking to the side and looking over and thinking, maybe I'll give that another go. And so I went and sat down, and it was like coming home again. And like soon after, I wrote my first song, and it's like, 25, 30 years later, whatever it's been, more than 25 years now, hundreds of songs. And I'm like, man, if I hadn't found my way back to that thing that I loved, then I honestly don't know where I would be or if I'd be here.
Yeah.
Because it got really dark. Because I just, again, I couldn't find myself in the world around me at that time. And that, again, massive believer in the power of music or, whether it's music or whether it's finding something that
Yeah.
lights us up, that enables us to feel alive, enables us to feel a sense of ourselves in something that we're creating or experiencing. And I think if we can find that, whether it's in a guitar or other sources, then the potential of kids living a good life and a life where they it's able to light them up is there. And when we've got the added component of things like you just mentioned, like your devices and social and things like that, yeah, it's a real risk if we don't find the things that bring us joy, because we can get lost in those devices. You gave a TEDx talk, right, about the was it something around restlessness? Like, tell us a little about that and how do we go about doing that while also then not getting lonely in that space?
I don't know. I kind of want to tell you the story of how restlessness has led me into some
Let's
things
do
in
that.
my life. So,
Please do.
so,
Yeah, it's great.
um, so when I went to college, I didn't, I didn't know, I didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think that's fairly common a lot of times when freshmen end up in college. So I knew that I had loved music. I was a guitar player. I had kind of played in a couple bands. We were not very good, but so I go to college and I go, oh, well, I'll major in music. Well, so I'm majoring in music, but I was like, it was like music education, which I could end up being a band director in a high school or something like that. And my very first day of music theory class, our professor said, here's, she goes, welcome you musical illiterates. Your assignment is to go back to your dorm room, write a jingle about milk, come back tomorrow and perform it for the class. So that was my first day of college, first day of music theory class. So I did that along with everybody else, and I didn't even think anything of it. 3 years later, I decided I was completely broke. I had no money, and I decided I'm going to take a year off, and then I'll come back and get and work. Then I'll come back and finish my college degree, a college degree that I didn't even know if I wanted. And so I got a job teaching guitar lessons for 9 months. I taught 55 guitar lessons a week. And
Wow.
basically, all I did all day long was teach junior high boys how to play the song Smoke on the Water.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I know. It's like that is the first song that anybody learns ever in the history of the entire existence of humanity. That is the song, right?
Yeah. Bum, 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 So I did
so
that.
good.
So I did that for 9 months, and I was almost losing my mind. And this was kind of one of my first experiences of when I felt so restless and so this job is killing me. I can't do it one more day. And I walked into my boss's office and I go, I quit. And now I had 3 months before I was going to go back and finish my college degree. And I'm going, what could I do? And I remembered back to my very first day of music theory class when my professor said, write a jingle about milk. And I thought, I wonder if anybody would hire me to write jingles for them. So I started walking into Minneapolis ad agencies and I said, hey, I'd like to be your new jingle writer. And of course they said, what jingles have you done? And I said, well, I did a milk commercial for music theory class. They were not very impressed. So I continued for about a week and I go, okay, that's not going to work. So I got out a legal pad. I turned on the radio and for 3 hours, I listened to the radio and I wrote all the companies that I thought had terrible jingles. And then I started calling them. and unfortunately, I probably wasn't very tactful. I probably said, your jingle sucks, man. You need some help. I could help you. Well, that didn't work. So finally, I went out and I bought a sport coat at this cheap clothing store place, and I drove my rusted out Chevy down to Rochester, Minnesota, which was like, uh, you know, 80 miles away. And I just walked into businesses and I said, I have a deal for you today. I'll go back to Minneapolis. I'll write a jingle for you. I'll go into a studio and record it, and I'll come back, play it for you next week. The only thing you have to agree to is if you love it, you'll negotiate a price with me. Well, I got 3 businesses to agree to that legally loophole deal. And I came back, recorded them, went back and sold them all. And, and I came back
All
to
3
Minneapolis.
sold?
I did. I sold
Boom.
them. And so for the 2 months of that summer, July and August, I went back and forth to Rochester, and I made more money in those 2 months writing these jingles than I did the previous 9 months listening to musically unrecognizable versions of Smoke on the Water. And it was like, and then I go, okay, now I'm going to finish my degree, but I know what I'm going to do when I'm done. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to write jingles for companies. And it was like, the thing about restlessness is, I think of restlessness as like a light on the dashboard of your car. You know, a light comes on, it says, something's not right here. Something isn't working. And I think in our life, we have those moments too. It's like, I think of, it's like an elbow that nudges you in the ribs, and you feel it and you go, yeah, this is not me. I am not happy. I am not fulfilled. I'm not doing what I want to do. And so I could tell you more stories, but all through my life, I've had these nudges. And when I ignore them, it's at my own expense. When I pay attention, it has taken me into these different career moves. I think most people think of restlessness as a negative feeling. And to me, I think of it as the impetus that will nudge you into something that is more meaningful, maybe more fulfilling. You know, every career move I've made, I actually, after that career, I went and I got 3 books published. And then now I've started these 2 nonprofits. None of these careers have anything to do with each other, you know, but they've all fulfilled me creatively. They've fulfilled me with purpose. So, yeah, I pay
Yeah.
attention to when I'm feeling restless, because I think it's saying there's something else waiting for you, man.
Yeah, one of the things that I heard within what you just shared there, first up is the resourcefulness that you have shown and demonstrated over the course of many years, especially with, okay, this didn't work. All right, what am I going to do next? Okay, this didn't work. Okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to back myself and say, I'll go and do this for you. Here's the negotiation. As long as you love it, then we'll go for it. And so there's a resourcefulness there of, you know, not necessarily having the resources to be able to make something happen and just going, you know what, I'm going to go and find a way to do that.
Yeah, right.
Which is great. So that first and foremost. Yeah, what were you going to say there?
Well, I was going to say, I kind of have a 3-strike rule for life.
Okay. What's that?
Well, it's like, you know, if you really feel strong about something, give it 3 chances. And the best example of that is my wife. She turned me down the first 2 times I asked her out. And I was like, okay, is this one of those times you go for strike 3? Because that can be painful. But she said yes on the
What would have happened
time.
if you didn't if you were striked out on the 3rd strike? Then would you go on again?
You know what? You haven't met my wife, but she's amazing. I think I would have gone for strike 4.
Yeah, yeah. So well, the sounds of it, it's strike 3 until strike 3 doesn't happen, and then if I still want it, then I'm going to go after it again, right? You know, like a little caveat underneath.
Yeah. Well, it's like you talk about. Some of this stuff is like how convinced are you in your mind that this is the right direction and that this is something that you feel so passionate about. I mean, I have some stuff that I'm kind of working on now that it's like I'm so passionate about it, and I've
Yeah.
had more than 3 strikes already on one of these things, and I'm going, I don't know. I'm still not ready to give up on it, but
Yeah. I saw this, like a meme type thing, like a little cartoon drawing actually. And it's the person digging through like underground and with an axe and a pick type thing. And he's this close.
yeah, I've seen that.
Bunch of diamonds. You've seen that? Yeah. And then he
Yeah,
walks the
yeah,
other
yeah.
direction because somebody else got some diamonds in another area, but it was a smaller amount of diamonds. And he's just able to get the mother load. And all of a sudden he turns back. And I think it's a tough one because you can't know fully the
No.
answer, but you can develop a greater level of conviction as you go. And if there is the belief that you have in it, and then there are maybe even just some signs that it's going to work out. There can be something to keep going, even if everything else is telling you to stop, or even if the people are telling you to stop. But it's like, no, I know that there's something here, and I've just got to find what that is and how to go about it. And so, yeah, it's a tough one though to
Uh,
determine. And
But I think it's also realizing that the worst thing that can happen to you is not failure. Because quite often failure is what helps you change course just maybe just slightly, and it's like, okay, like for me with the, trying to build this jingle business, it's like, okay, I couldn't go directly to the ad agencies until I had a reputation. And I
yeah,
couldn't go directly to companies until I had a reputation. I had to actually come up with an approach that required more risk, because I made deals with these companies, and I could have brought those back. And if they would have all said, "These suck, man," I don't know what I would have done. You think there are moments in your life where one thing could have changed just slightly, and it might have changed your whole direction in your life. And
yeah,
I don't know. I can't predict that because what happened happened, and I am where I am, and I've done what I've done. So I go, okay, I feel like the resilience has paid off. The three strike rule, for the most part, works. Although, I don't know. I'm still making it
yeah.
up as I go, Cameron.
Yeah, I think we all are, right, at the end of the day. And I think we've all got our examples of things that have knocked us down and like, did we get back up again? I know for me, like from a speaking standpoint, there was a talk that I gave a while ago that just did not land. And it was a flop, right? And I had tried out. I tried out a different opening story. It was the first time that I had shared this opening story, and I thought, you know what, I think this could work. And it was like I come back afterwards and realizing that, oh, no, it can't work. Like even if I tell it whatever way, it's probably not a good fit. And that was brutal. It was brutal to get that kind of feedback, when especially when some of the pieces of that were actually extraordinary, but they were covered, I guess, up by some of the pieces that just didn't land at all. And I could have easily blamed and said, "Oh, it's that audience. They're crap. They're this. They're that." But it was like, no. I got on the phone with the organizer. Said, "Hey, I'd love the feedback," and she just fired it at me. And it was like, "Oh, this is really difficult to hear."
Yeah.
And I go, "Okay." And I just took it on, and there were like 2 or 3 things in there that I actually didn't agree with, and feel like, okay, I think that's just probably that audience. But then there was, the overwhelming majority of it was, and what's awesome about that is, okay, let me at it, right? And it's like, work on it, work on it, work on it. Very next keynote got a standing ovation. And so that's like just the example of like, if you still believe like the example that you gave of if they all 3 of them said, this is crap, man, then you've got a decision to make. You look back and go, you know what? If people don't like this, one, am I willing to adapt? 2, am I actually able to adapt? Like, do I have the skill set that enables me to do that? Am I going to have to get better? Am I committed to getting better? And if not, then maybe it's time to walk away. But if you are, then it's about, okay, let's get better. Let's get better. And I think when you mentioned about, like, from a restlessness standpoint and just having that time and that space, that many people don't take now because it's filled up with things like technology, like you were sharing earlier. And I think the way I like to think about it is that silence speaks to us, but only if we're quiet enough to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have to get really quiet. Now, whether that's you believe that that's a voice in your head, it's your brain, or it's God, or it's something else, like that's not the point. Like, the point is that it happens. And there's these ideas that form in those moments. There's little, as you meant, like the little nudge of the elbow that occurs. But unless you're actually listening, unless you're tuning in, you're going to miss those things that are along the way. And I remember someone sharing years ago about kind of like hey, Terry, it's time to move, man. Terry, seriously, it's time to move. Come on, man. And then eventually it's like, all right, whack, and it's like a massive slap, proverbial slap across the face. And this is where I'll often share, and I set people up in the keynotes to go, hey, do you ever notice how some of your biggest breakthroughs come directly after your biggest breakdowns? And people are like, oh, yeah. And I said, yeah, it's because you're not listening.
Yeah.
Right? Those things were there along the way, and we've all had this. There's a reason why people say, "Oh yeah, hindsight is 20/20." It's like those things were there all along the way. You just weren't noticing the signposts. You weren't noticing whether something was on track or off track. You weren't noticing whether something needed to shift, whether it was an actual career shift, like some of the things you mentioned, or whatever somebody's going through, whether it's within business, whether it's in their relationship, whether it's their health and well-being, or something else. Our ability to be able to continue to shift and tweak along the way, make these small changes, sometimes bigger changes. The more that we're able to do that, the more intentional we become, and the more aligned we can become as a result of that, which sounds like you've been able to find and experience that alignment, even though on the surface it might seem very different. Some of these career choices, they, as I've heard from you, are very aligned from a value standpoint, though.
Yeah. First of all, you're really good at summarizing thoughts.
Oh, thank you. 15 years of coaching, I think that's probably the big part of it. So, but I appreciate that.
You summarized what I said very well. Just to add something to that, I think piece of what you're talking about is humility. It's like, am I humble enough to hear criticism and go, what piece of that do I need to own, and what piece of it do I need to let go? And that's really important too. Like you said, there, discernment, but you have to be vulnerable and humble enough to actually hear the criticism. Because, the beauty about criticism is if it's true and if it's legit, it can only help us, right? It can help us to grow and overcome something, a blind spot that we might have. But we don't live in a very humble age right now. And I think it's to our detriment. And it worries me. Because I'm not sure we're learning from our mistakes.
Learning from those mistakes is so important as well, though, aren't they? Because, it's in the messiness, it's in the challenge, it's in the heartbreak or the not knowing, and there's just such beautiful lessons in there. And I think about, as you were sharing, of like, one of the things that I share in keynotes is about challenging assumptions, in this key step that I go through about challenging assumptions, because the assumptions that we have about what we believe to be true, once we really challenge those, especially if those assumptions aren't allowing us to get the results that we want, some of those key questions that I like to think through and ask about is, okay, what if I'm wrong? And you don't have to, you can always come back to your opinion, right?
Yeah.
This is and notice it's not only the language, but it's also the tonality. This is how I see curiosity, is that it's about important having curious language and curious tonality. Both of those together, it can head you in a completely different direction. Like that example of, oh, what if I'm wrong? Versus, what if I'm wrong? It's one heads it in, oh no, that means that the world's going to end versus, oh, let's see. Let's
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah.
And like, what if I'm wrong? Or what if there was a better way of doing this? Or what if we could? Like, there was a beautiful example of the what if we could when was it? Back in 2018. And I got booked to deliver a TEDx talk in Rome. And we ended up having people from 40 different countries involved in a music video, like 80 artists from more than 40 countries around the world. And they all recorded in their part of the world. It was going to be this video on the backdrop while I performed the song live on stage on a grand piano. And for my part in the video, everyone started recording and filming in their part of the world in front of mountains and castles and rivers and ruins. It was amazing to witness. But I had a big problem then because I was going to record on a grand piano, didn't know how to play the guitar at the time. And I was just going to record in Mexico City where I was living at the time, which had a grand piano in the apartment. But it was going to look so out of place then. And so I made my peace with it. I go, that's okay. I'll be on stage with the grand piano anyway. There's no way I've got time to be able to get a grand piano out to some crazy location and film and do all of that before I had to be over in Europe for the final rehearsal. So I made my peace with that. We'll do that collaboration. I'll be on stage performing. They'll be on the video. And then just the most beautiful thing happened the next day. It's still one of the greatest lessons that I think that I've learned in life is I just woke up the next morning, 20th floor of this apartment complex, and just laid in bed for a moment and thought, what if I could do it in this video?
Yeah.
And I just started playing around. The way I see it is like a curiosity bridge. It's like the bridge between where you are and where it is that you want to be. And if you can just dance along there for a little while, maybe you could make it across. Maybe not, but maybe. Like, why not at least explore? And I kid you not, when I went back and forth of going, oh, you're crazy for even thinking that you might be able to make this happen to, but yeah, but what if this is possible? And back and forth and back and forth. And I think so often we give up, not because we can't do something, but because we give into the voice of reason. We give into the voice that says, that it's trying to keep us safe, that says you can't do something, that it's not possible. And on that day, I think I just gave that more empowering voice enough space to breathe. And it won out. And I kid you not, within 24 hours, I had everything except for the location and the permit. We had the drone videographer, the photographer, the piano moving company, all of those things. And then short time later, had the location sorted, flew up from Mexico City to Colorado. And then just as I sat at this grand piano at sunrise in the freezing cold, just surrounded by this incredible nature at Garden of the Gods in Colorado, which is where we filmed, which is a stunningly beautiful location. It was just this moment of the biggest thing getting in my way was myself.
Yeah.
And when we can get out of our own way, when we can get out of the way of our own assumptions, magical things can happen. And that was living proof of that because it just added so much to the video, and it brought it to life even more. It enabled us to be all part of the video, and it was just this beautiful lesson. Just get out of your own way.
I want to see this video now.
I'll shoot it across to you.
Share it with me. I love what you said though. It's like, what if I could?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we've become a culture that is so concerned about security that we've become very risk averse, and we're afraid to take risks because we might fail, and by choosing to not take a risk and not fail, we're losing our potential for developing resiliency. So it's like, if we could all just think a little bit more like, well, what if I could do that? I mean, what if I did a jingle and what if they actually liked it? It's like those decisions can change the course of your life in so many ways.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you said something, you used the word curiosity. And, in the 3 questions you gave me for closing this out, one of my top values is curiosity.
Yeah.
So it's like, when we get to that, I have some things to say about that too.
it is such, curiosity is it's an extraordinary character trait. And I would say to echo what you just shared is that if we don't develop our curiosity as we experience the rapid change that we're experiencing now and the change that we can't even come close to comprehending just how fast it's going to be in the future. If you're not curious, if you're risk
Yeah.
adverse, if you're stuck in your ways, you're probably in for some solid amount of pain potentially, and it's just a matter of time. And that's unfortunate. And so those listening, like, nurture that curiosity, develop it, and worlds open up when you do.
I was thinking about the concept of certainty. I think that's another huge problem we have right now is so many people are so certain about things. And the trouble with certainty is when you're certain, you don't have to learn anything new because you already know the answers, right?
Yeah.
So when you're certain about something, you tend to lose your curiosity. And when you lose your curiosity, you've just short-circuited the potential to actually learn something new, to go someplace new. So, people think sometimes that the opposite of certainty is doubt. And there's part of me that goes, I think to a certain degree, doubt actually has a lot of benefits, kind of like restlessness does. You know, if you doubt something, it maybe forces you to dig a little deeper and find out, okay, but is there a reason to believe this? Or, and it's like, hopefully that triggers more curiosity, which then takes you into the next thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a huge benefit to staying as a curious person. And a lot of times, I don't know how old you are, but I know you're a freaking lot younger than me. But I'm 71, and it's like I see a lot of people my age who, just get really comfortable, and they're not looking for something new. I I'm a person of faith, and I was just on this vacation down in Florida, and I flew my bike down there because I fly my bike where I go. And I went for a bike ride every day, and on my bike ride, I prayed this prayer. I said, God, give me one more big adventure. And I don't know what it is, but I'm looking. I don't know. I feel like there's more to this story. And I feel like I have something else to give, something more. I don't know exactly what it is, but I guess maybe that's what makes it an adventure. So I'm sitting here with my arm up, waiting for the nudge, waiting for the
Yeah. Right.
for the elbow to hit me in the ribs and say, because you never know when that idea comes. Like
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
my ideas for the music career, for every song I've written, for the books that I've written, for these, they all of a sudden unexpectedly came as an idea. And and when it came, most of them I was like, oh, now that's a good idea. Where did that idea come from? But it's like, that's my hope. I'm hoping
Yeah.
for one more grand adventure in my 70s. And then maybe if I live to be in my 80s, I'll go, I want one more grand
Yeah,
adventure in
let's
my
go
80s.
again. Let's go again.
Yeah.
It's what I love about your approach there is that you're approaching it with the lens of there's another big opportunity out there. And so there's a seeking of it. I go, I wonder what it is. Oh, is it that? Or could it be this? Could it be that? And that's where that curiosity comes in. And I'm a massive believer that you are. And this came from my grandpa many, many years ago. He passed away many years ago. But when he was 80, he began woodworking.
Wow.
So when he was 80, he started woodworking. He ended up making tables and chairs, and some of them are at different family homes back in Australia now. And it's awesome. And it was never, the most intricate things because, he started when he was 80, right? But it was pretty damn good for what he was able to accomplish, and he loved it. And
Yeah.
I would say that I didn't. It was roses, and it was woodwork for him. And every single time we'd go into town, he was really hard of hearing. I think but a lot of that was from the machinery on the farm growing up. And he'd say, come on down. And we'd go down to see his woodwork, and then he'd show us the roses. And I definitely didn't appreciate it enough. I didn't notice what he was doing in those moments of sharing something that was really that meant something to him, and he
Yeah.
wanted to share that and express that. And yeah, I definitely look back at that time and go, yeah, you could have. I mean, I didn't know really how, I guess, at that moment of understanding that, but it was beautiful looking back on it. It was beautiful to witness somebody who, yeah, completely reinvented himself. And one of my aunts said that he said when he was about like he'd started working and he said, I wish I'd found this 20 years earlier.
Hmm.
And it definitely stuck with me because I wonder, okay, am I approaching things in a way that's going to enable me to discover things about myself and what I want to experience in an appropriate manner? Or am I going to potentially be 20 years later than what it could have been if I was listening? And this is
Yeah.
where, again, continuing to take note of those nudges, continuing to take note of the guideposts, if you will, as to whether you're on track or not. And yeah, it's an interesting one. So this is great.
It makes me wonder if your grandpa, in those previous 20 years, did he have some moments when he thought, man, if I had time, I'd love to do some woodworking,
Yeah,
you
possibly.
know?
I
And
wouldn't be at all. I would not be at all surprised. I mean, he was on the farm the whole time and very handy, and so I would not be at all surprised if there was something there. And it does it. They start as whispers.
yeah,
You know, they start so faint, so quiet. I had this one in particular back in 2015. I went overseas for the first time. I went to Bali, and I just split with my then long-term partner, and I was really devastated at what had happened and it ending and believing that was going to be who I was going to be with. And went over to Bali. We had that trip planned and we both went, but we went our separate ways. And on the final day, I'd already had this experience of realizing that life was about experiences, not things.
yeah.
Because in the first 40 days of moving out and moving into my own place, I went skydiving, rappelling down waterfalls, mountain climbing, whitewater rafting, overseas for the first time. I just went all in, right? And I basically did a 180 flip because she mentioned in one of the last conversations that we ever had, that I was rigid. You know, you're so rigid.
Wow.
And I completely agree with that. I was so stuck in my ways and it was so business focused and it was just, yeah, monotonous in a way. And yeah, when it ended, I'm like, fuck it. And just went all the way around and did all of these things, realizing, yeah, life is about experiences, not things. And then I had this moment, the final day. It was like a couple of hours before I had to go to the airport to leave. And I start walking towards this cafe that I decided I was going to go to. And it was a really long walk. It was about 30 odd minutes. Not too long, but like long for what the time that I had left. And it's about 2.5 hours at that time. By the time I got to the cafe, it was about 2 hours before I had to go. So as I went to walk, I said to myself, oh, I'm going to go to a cafe that's closer by. And it was just a little nudge, if you will, go to the other cafe.
Yeah.
And I go, all right, fine. Begrudgingly, I'll go do the extra distance. So I cruise down there. I walk in, and there's a really beautiful woman that's sitting there alone. And I go, oh, you should go talk to her. Like in my mind, I go, you should go talk to her. And then it's like, there's this voice on this side and this voice on this side. Don't be silly. You just, split up. And it went back and forth. I go and sit down. I didn't speak to her for, when I sat down and had my food. It was a good meal. And she's still sitting there. And I was going, dude,
That was a sign.
go and have a conversation, dude. And I ended up paying for my food. I went to walk out. I was about walking out, and just go and talk to her. So I went across, said, "Do you mind if I sit down?" And she had like really broken English. I could tell, from somewhere else, like a different country. And we ended up being able to have a conversation though. It was, and really just had that conversation until I had to head off. And something really interesting happened. We got onto the topic of music, and I had one of my songs that I had written. I shared that with her, and then she said, "Oh, there's this song that I really like right now," and she put it on the player, and press play. I had the headphones and I'm just listening there, and it's this beautiful piece of music, like an instrumental piece. It's this piano piece with some of these other instruments coming in. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And there was these two things that came from it. Like, one was, you need to be like this. I said to myself, you need to be doing more of this. Like, you need to be creating more, for one, and you need to be experiencing more. You need to be like going and exploring and doing all these things, and that, everything that I'd experienced over the last 40 days or so. Then, I kid you not, I looked down at the song, and the song's called Experience. And I remember looking, it's like by Ludovico Einaudi. If you go and listen to it, it's very well known. It's like in so many different movies and ads and stuff. And I looked down, I go, you are fucking kidding me. What? And it was just this light bulb kind of moment, but I didn't know where that was going to lead to. But it was just this moment of, I know I've got to do more. I went back, bought the album back when you could buy albums, really, and listening to that on the device. And I remember walking through the park near my house back in Australia afterwards, and it was like the soundtrack that I was listening to was the soundtrack for the park and the families that were playing in the park. And it was just, it was just like this reinforcement of, you need to be doing more of this. And then as I walked out, these leaves brushed up into the air, and it was almost like there's something here. And I don't know what that is. Like you said, you're a man of faith, whether it's that or it's something else. I don't really mind what it is. What I know is there's something there, and like what that was worth following. And so fast forward, I ended up the following year, I sold everything that I owned. I went on this big adventure around the world, staying in places with grand pianos in them, filming as I went along.
Wait,
And
I thought you were the rigid guy.
I know, right? This is where my curiosity really ramped up, and like the lesson in curiosity. It was just this crazy turn of events that occurred, and I just leaned into it over and over again. I had no idea where I was going to be. I had no idea where I was going to end up. But there was just this curious nature about, all right, let's see what happens. And I had some form of clarity, but that I could never have imagined that I would become a National Geographic explorer and go and film, that there'd be a film from Colombia that I filmed of nature that would go viral, that I would get invited to deliver a TEDx talk in Rome, that I would move to the US, that I'd then go on to meet my wife, who's here in the US. There are so many pieces that I go on to give talks with live music on stage, and finally bring that together where I can give that experience. Like, wow. And I do wonder whether, and again, you never know what direction it would have taken if I hadn't listened to that at that time.
Yeah.
But there's those moments that I think what I want for myself and for anybody is, I don't know where I would have ended up, but I'm so glad that I made the decision to go where I did.
Yeah.
And the more that we can do that, the more we're able to live a worthwhile existence, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Well, a lot of this gets back to, if you were rigidity and curiosity are not exactly the greatest companions. So it sounds to me like you've kind of said, I have to let go of some of that rigidity, and I don't know what that's based in, but you go, I want to value experiences. Have you read the book? I just read this. It's called The Extinction of Experience.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should check it out.
Good book?
It's a great book.
Nice.
And it's kind of about how so many of our experiences now are mediated experiences. Like, instead of talking to someone face to face, we're doing it here. And it's like, it's saying we need to let go of all these intermediary things that mediate experiences for us and enter into them in personal, analog, incarnate sort of ways, right? So there's that. But I was going to tell you a story about, do we still have time? We're good. We're going too long.
We're good.
It's interesting what took me from my music career into writing books. I was sitting at the piano one day, and I was supposed to be writing this commercial or whatever. And it was the beginning of December. And I'm sitting at the piano, and, I'm looking at the white keys and the black keys, and I'm looking at them, and they're staring back at me, but we're not talking to each other. And as I'm sitting there, I go, I had this idea. A guy wakes up on Christmas morning. He's disenchanted with life. He just like, he's frustrated. There's no magic in it. And he does something weird. He gets a piece of cardboard and he writes the word heaven on it. And he takes it out to the side of the highway and puts out his thumb and starts hitchhiking. And I'm sitting at the piano going, that's weird. And I have to write this jingle. And I go, and then all of a sudden I go, oh. And then a guy in a rusted out pickup truck pulls over and picks him up. And he's dressed up head to toe like Santa Claus, but like a white trash Santa. He's got ketchup stains in his fake beard and stuff. And, he pulls over and, didn't look like a guy who knew how to get to heaven, but this guy hops in and Santa Claus goes, I can't get you to heaven, but I can get you as far as the North Pole. Ha, ha, ha. And I go, I'm supposed to be writing a jingle. And then I go, oh. And then they see another hitchhiker, but he has a sign that says Earth. And Santa Claus goes, I'm not missing this. And he picks him up. So now I have in the front seat of this rusted out Dodge Dakota pickup truck, a guy who's trying to figure out how to get to heaven beside kind of this Christ figure who's hitchhiking to Earth on Christmas morning. And they're being chauffeured by the icon of cultural icon, Christmas Santa Claus. And I actually got up from the piano and I went upstairs to my laptop and I wrote the story. And it was the first story in this collection. My first book was a collection of short stories. And as I was sitting at my laptop writing, all of a sudden I go, wait a minute. Melodies are becoming sentences and rhythm is becoming punctuation and notes are becoming words. So it was like I had this weird sense that, okay, writing a story is not so weird. I'm still using the same tools I used in music, but it's a different palette. And that was what started me into this period where I got 3 books published. And it was like, I'm just sitting at a piano and a weird story starts coming through my head. And it's like, that's another thing where I was starting to get restless with, with my music career, because I was like doing all these jingles promoting herbicides and pesticides. And I go, should I be doing this? Am I helping the world here? And, all this kind of stuff. So anyhow, that was a random thing that it's like you heard a song called Experience, and it might have changed the direction of your life, and I'm sitting there at a piano and the story comes in and I know it changed the next 10 years of my life. So it's like, what's that next thing that's going to, you and I don't know, are we still curious enough and open enough for when that next nudge happens and that next great adventure reveals itself? And then are we comfortable enough with taking a risk to pursue it? And are we going to give it 3 strikes? It's like all those questions. It's like, but Cameron, isn't this what makes life fun?
It really does. It really does. And it's the unknown in those moments. It's not knowing exactly how it's going to work out and being completely okay with that, because the reality
is going to work out.
Or if it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, again, like I sharing earlier about like challenging assumptions and challenging what you believe to be true, or challenging, hang on, maybe there's a different direction that I could go. And it reminds me of, there was this song I wrote years ago, had the lyrics in it, take me as I am, see I'm a walking contradiction. What I thought was absolute couldn't be much further from the truth. And it's just this, I'll believe what I'm going to believe until proven otherwise. And once I'm presented with a new piece of information, I am more than okay with saying I was completely off.
Yeah.
And whether that's for my own self or it's some other version, and that playing in that space of not needing to know that I'm right, because it's an ongoing journey. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. Hey, let's do the rapid fire. There's three pieces to this: the values, beliefs, and actions or habits. First one, you alluded to it earlier in the conversation. Your number one. What's your number one value and why?
Well, in thinking now, I'm going. I kind I kind of believe in gratitude and generosity. I just heard this thing that said when you're over 70, you should be you should be ruled by gratitude and forgiveness. And I think there's a lot of truth to that because I think that gratitude is such a powerful thing for me. Um, and I have so much to be grateful for. Um, and generosity, I feel like in this most recent season of my life, by giving away bikes and giving away guitars, there's so much joy that comes from being generous. But it was so weird. So I like to keep some small bills in my car. So when I come to a stoplight and there's somebody there asking for money, I have something to give them. And I told Mary this the other day. I came to this guy and I reached in my pocket. All I had was a 20. So I drove on. And I could not get that out of my head for the longest time. I go, Terry, you are so freaking pathetic. You could not part with a 20. And so now I'm on a mission to go and get cash and only get 20s and say, you know what? If I give a guy a $20 bill at this stoplight, it's not going to change my life. But it might change his life, right? So I don't know. I want to learn the practice of generosity and gratitude um, because I have so much to be grateful for.
I love that. What's a belief that's shaped who you've become, whether it be a belief about yourself, about others, or about the world?
Well, this is where I was going to talk about curiosity
Yeah.
because to me that's a belief that I want I think I have lived my life by that and I want to continue to do that because it's just it's like I said, I see so much certainty in the world, and I think so much of the certainty is there because of fear, and there's so much fear, and I don't know if people are fearing the lack of security or I mean, there's all kinds of things to be afraid of, I guess, in this world, but if those things control you, it can be devastating. So I want to stay a curious person till the day I die.
Mm.
I I'm curious, like, what happens after I die?
Yeah.
I,
If
it's
you're all right, for you to be curious until the day that you die, then I can imagine you being on your bed and you're still, let's say you're still, sane, if you will, and so you know what you're doing, and then you just, you know, turn to the people that love you, they're surrounding you, and you're laying in bed and you just go, let's see what happens. And then you're gone. And then that's out, right? And then that's like the last day and boom, like, let's see what happens. Who knows, right?
I hope that that's true.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think my dad was like that. My dad on his deathbed, he goes, Terry, I think I know where I'm going after this, but he goes, that's unknown. So I just as
Mm.
soon stay here as long as I can.
Right. That's so good. That's so good. What about a habit, routine, or ritual? What's a habit, routine, or ritual that you can't live without? And this could be a daily habit right out to an annual tradition, and you can go both if you'd like to.
Yeah. Well, espresso.
Yep.
I like that. I am a really exercise is my therapy. So, and riding a bike is my preferred uh, choice of exercise. I have found that I can have the worst day ever, and I get on my
Mm.
bike and go for a ride, and I'm a mile into it, and it's like I can't remember what I was upset about. So it washes my brain out. So I'm dedicated to exercise, and I love to read. I think reading helps us to grow. I listen to a stupid number of podcasts. I mean, I love this era that we live in because there's so many interesting things out there. And I'm sorry, I've only listened to a couple of yours. I didn't even know about yours until recently. But it's like if you want to learn and expand your thinking, the resources are there. I mean, AI, it's like I've been playing around with music generating programs in AI, and I'm going,
Yeah.
you got to be kidding me. I can't believe, because when I started in the music business, I wrote notes on paper, and then I hired musicians and brought them in and we rehearsed it and then we recorded it. It's like, and now it's like you can do that in 30 seconds. I can have a fully produced piece of music with the lyric that I wrote or whatever. And it's like, it's crazy, but
It is crazy.
it's an interesting time to be alive, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
So I think all that stuff, it's
Yeah.
exciting. It makes, getting up in the morning is a fun thing because you go, what can and what could happen today, right?
Yeah. So good. So good. Hey, where can people go to find out more about the not-for-profits and to connect with you as well?
Free guitars for kids. Wait, I don't know if you can see this.
Yep.
So yeah, fg4k.org. I also have the FB4K, free
Nice.
bikes for kids, FB4K. I actually started a website just a month ago called vivalaresistance.org. I think there's an opportunity for the artists of the world to not only write love songs, but maybe to write protest songs. I think there's an opportunity I think the artists have the greatest chance to impact culture in a positive way. I also have one of my recent things is I wrote a novel. It's called Jesus, but the middle S is reversed. So it's je2us.com. And you can go there and you can read the whole novel. And it's a strange novel that imagines that Jesus didn't come 2,000 years ago, but he comes now for the first time to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and messes with everything that's going on. So one of my dreams is to turn that into a feature film. So I'm trying to see if I can find some investors to make that happen. But one
Wonder if
more,
that's the big adventure.
I don't, you know what, Cameron?
Who knows?
I hope it is.
Maybe.
Because I think that would be a hoot to do a feature film. I just watched the Oscars last night.
Love that. Love
and
that.
a guy who won for the best score, he got up and said, "The guitar changed my life." So today, before we were on this call, I was trying to track him down to say, dude, you need to get involved with free guitars for kids because the guitar changed your life and it can change a lot of other kids' lives.
Yeah. What a beautiful way to wrap this one up. Thank you for coming on the show. This has been a blast.
This is really fun. I feel like I've known you for a long time. I'd like to, I want to hear your music. Maybe we can go for a bike ride sometime.
I'd love that. I'd love that. Yeah, that's going to be good. And we'll connect after and I'll shoot some stuff across to you as well. And again, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And for those tuning in, we'll have everything that was mentioned linked in the show notes at CameronAtlas.com/podcast. We've got some great new guests coming up. So make sure you hit that follow button, leave a comment. And until next time, go and write the next line in your story. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next time here on The Edge of Possible.